Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. As you've seen, the title of this episode is Are You Curious? If not, you should be. That's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about business. We're going to be talking about building relationships, but we're also going to be talking about curiosity in the workplace, because any business or anything successful in life has always started with a question. So we're going to be talking about curiosity today with my friend Jon. Now he's a CEO. I had to write this down because he's got a list of stuff. He's a CEO, consultant, speaker, author. He's the Swiss Army knife of positivity. Jon, my brother, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I love it. And guys, this episode is being brought to you by my book. It is now #1 on Amazon. If you buy my book about podcasting for $30, you get over $1,000 in bonuses, including being a guest on this show. So for $30, pick it up. It teaches you you can be anywhere in the world, on a cruise ship, on an island. You can be doing podcasts anywhere in the world, work anytime, and make money 24/7. So, Jon, first question I'm going to ask you, because if some people would see you today, they see how successful you are. You got a great family, but your life hasn't always been sunshines and rainbows and unicorns and Skittles. So, what is your definition of resiliency?
Yeah, I think it's kind of that old adage, right, of going from failure to failure without any loss of momentum, right? Because you're always going to have setbacks in life. You're always going to have things that work out. Especially as you know and I know as entrepreneurs, there's always going to be issues that we come across. There's going to be setbacks in marketing, setbacks in this and that, and just being able to push forward, believing in yourself, and know that because of your worth and what you do and what you bring to the table, things are always going to work out.
Okay, so now me and you, like you said, we're the entrepreneurs. Things are changing on a daily, sometimes weekly basis, and sometimes we have to pivot. So give us a quick down and dirty about who you are, where did you grow up, and how did you get into the crazy world of business and entrepreneurship?
Sure. So I was born and raised in Decatur, Illinois. I spent pretty much my child from birth to through undergrad. From there, I went on to law school in Northwest Ohio. After law school, quite frankly, talking about pivots, I wasn't really quite sure what I wanted to do with my life and my career. I wasn't quite sure that law was what I wanted to do. And I fell into working for a legal organization that I was a member of in law school. And actually backing up a little bit, when I was in high school, I did a family vacation to Washington, D.C. and fell in love with it. Just everything about D.C., the atmosphere, the monuments, the history, everything. And so I told myself I was going to move there one day. I actually ended up spending a semester in D.C. in college as well. And so when I got that first job offer at a law school, it was based in Baltimore. If you don't know the area, I mean, it's literally 45 minutes away without traffic. So I said, that's close enough for now. So I worked in Baltimore for 6 years. My next job was down in D.C. And made that transition down and been down here ever since. So between Baltimore and D.C., I've been out in the Mid-Atlantic area for about 17 years now. And
so first question I got to ask is,
yeah.
Are you a Commanders fan? Are you a Ravens fan? Or are you a Bears fan?
That's a very interesting question. I would say now more than anybody else is probably Commanders. I tend to support football teams where I like the quarterback more than an allegiance, because I have bounced around a little bit, but I definitely do support the Commanders probably more than the other two.
Okay, the only reason I'm asking is my son actually went to school with the tight end for the Ravens, Isaiah Likely. So I got to give him a big shout out to Isaiah. So again, curiosity, because I love DC. I could just go in and out of the memorials and just read everything. I could spend weeks there because I'm a curiosity guy. Now, when you were growing up, I grew up in an abused household, but for me, books were my solace. That was my, way of, and I've read over 6,000 books. I think I got 18 books going right now, including 2 audios. That was my curiosity. So was John a curiosity, a kid that was really curious about everything?
Yeah, not so much on the reading front though. Yeah, I think my curiosity was a little driven by, you know, looking back at family reunions and in places where I was around adults. Like I always found myself involved in the adult conversation, just taking things in, learning, speaking up, giving my thoughts, asking questions. I've always kind of had that very analytical mind behind me. I'm one of those kids who always told growing up that you're going to be a great lawyer one day. I just had that inquisitive mind and also probably willing to push back and argue from time to time as those personalities tend to rely on. So yeah, I just always been always curious, right? Just didn't take things just based on face value and the status quo, but willing to ask questions, dive deep, be analytical, and not just from what people are saying, but then interpret that internally and what that meant to me and what I believed.
Okay, so because I sold timeshares for many years, and as soon as I knew I had an analytical on the table, I was like, "Oh shit, here we go." But my wife is very analytical, and my best friend's a very analytical kind of guy. But I also noticed that analytical people normally, not all the time, normally don't get into entrepreneurship because they're so locked down into the numbers that they don't really move into anything. I think it's paralysis by analysis. So, how did you get into the whole entrepreneurial space?
So my career really began to take off when I got into internal operations. And I think why that was fitting for me as this analytical mind was I'm a jack of all trades type person. I have a law degree. I'm not a practicing attorney. I actually went on to get my MBA. But I'm not a CPA. So I oversee accounting, HR, legal, all these functions for an organization, and just have that ability to look at things from a very 360 point of view, analyze what's working and not working, and have that strategic mind as well to figure out how to improve and advance things too.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Like I said, I'm a 9th grade dropout. But I've had over 1,350 interviews now with millionaires, billionaires, and a lot of people that I've talked to, like David Meltzer, Sharon Lechter, Kiyosaki. When I talk to them, they're like, a lot of them went to school, and then they're like, go to school to be an MBA, but the person that's teaching me business has never owned a business. And it's kind of like, I see these guys that they're on social media as an 18-year-old life coach. It's like, bro, you've never even lived yet. You're 18 years old. You should have abs. I'm just saying. So, talk to us about, because there's difference between getting your MBA and then when you're getting out into the real world, it's a whole different beast. Just like, they taught me ways to do stuff in the military book way. But once we got into the field, there's a different way. So what was that like, going from MBA and then getting smacked in the real world and finding out the real world of business?
So I actually got my MBA later. So I actually was already in the world. I had already had, by the time I started my MBA, I already had a title of VP of operations. So I did it less for the education piece and more for those 3 letters on the back of my name to give me that clout in management, finance, and accounting. That's really why I did it. And of course, I learned some things here and there throughout my MBA, but it really just kind of, solidified what I'd kind of learned on my own through growing my career.
All right, so let's talk about, because when I first started my podcast, I think it's 6 years ago, it was just me. Mm-hmm. I did everything. And I realize now that I'm good at interviewing. I'm good at building relationships. I suck at marketing. I suck at branding. I suck at graphics. But somebody once told me, well, I started my own. Now I have my own, this business, which is actually a big business now, is I realize that if I wanted to go fast, I run by myself. If I want to go far, I have to build a team.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of new business owners fail, is because they try to do it all and realizing, you may be great at, like one of my mentors is Gary Vaynerchuk. And he always said to me, he's like, Rich, excuse my language. He said, fuck what you're not good at, but triple down on what you are good at. Yeah. And I think when most people start businesses, they try to do it all and then they become successful at nothing. So talk about how important for new business owners to start trying to build a team and building processes that actually work.
Yeah. So real quick before I answer that question, you and I could have an entire podcast on Gary Vaynerchuk. I have followed him since his wine vlog days, and I'm a big fan of him with his message and everything that he does as an influencer. So I'm a big fan as well. I like to call it the DIY dilemma. When we're starting out, there's that notion that we're short on resources. Everything's got to be done by me. But here's what I always ask, a business owner, if you were going to hire a team, would you hire a team of C players or you hire a team of A players? They say, well, A players, duh. I'm like, well, if you're doing everything, you have built a team of C players. There's some things that you're A at, some things you're B, some things you're D, all the way down to F, right? There are some things that you are just not good at. And so aggregating those, you have just built a team of one of C players. And that's not going to get you very far. Additionally, what tends to happen is when they, for me being from the operational side, what tends to happen is they get sucked down into the operations because it's often an area where they don't fully have a lot of experience, don't fully understand, and they get sucked down in there, which is going to just suffocate their business because as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you need to be up high. You need to be strategy, vision, goals, marketing. And even when business owners start bringing on a team, usually the first places they start bringing other people in are those areas that the business owner probably has the most expertise. Yep. In marketing, in sales, right? That tends to be where their focus is because they know the brand, they know the service, they know the product, whatever it is they're selling, they know that because that's their zone of genius. And what they don't do is fill in that internal operations piece. And so they constantly get sucked back down into that. I mean, that's why I believe for most business owners, that first person you need is that jack of all trades operations manager who has a wide variety of skill sets and can troubleshoot, problem solve, and have great resource management to help you get out of the weeds. At the same time, you trust that that person is going to be critical and think and get things done.
And I agree with that. Now, also, I think a lot of it is control issues because it's their baby. They feel they need to control everything. I have a group on Facebook. It's called Veterans Supporting Veterans. It's blown up in the last, couple of weeks. It went from like 500 members to 11,000 members. And one of my friends said, I can help you out. And I was getting mad. I'm like, bro, this is my baby. But I'm like, but this is what Tom's great at.
Yeah.
So I just wrote to him. I'm like, bro, if that's what you're great at, let's roll with it and we'll build this thing. But I had to humble myself and say, maybe you're not good at this. Maybe, let Tom do what he's great at. Like I'm a sports guy, bro. I'm a big basketball. I'm a pro basketball guy. And I play NBA 2K and I'm playing as Kobe Bryant right now. But one thing I love about Kobe, he said, when Phil told him stay in your lane, and Kobe says, and excuse my language again, but Kobe said, I'll stay in my lane, but I'm going to dominate this motherfucker. So, maybe I'll stay in my lane, but as long as Shaq is over here and you got Robert Ory over here, as long as they're doing their job, I'll stay in my lane and dominate. But I think you have to really niche down and find out what is your lane, right?
100%. I mean, and one of the obviously knowing your skill sets, know where they best will help and improve your business is critical. But also don't forget thinking about what is that you enjoy doing. Because if you are stuck doing all the things that you don't want to do and you don't like doing, you're not going to make it very far. Again, like you're going to get that's where the burnout comes in. Burnout doesn't come from doing all the fun, exciting things that get you up in the morning, get you up before your alarm clock, keeps you working past 5 o'clock. The things that get you to quit are doing all the things that you're not good at and you don't even like doing. And that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Okay, like I said, I'm a huge reader, and I actually had conversations with Alex and Layla Hormozy. But something they talk about in the 100 Millions is that sometimes you'll have to hire somebody to do, say, graphics, and then eventually, once you have to know what the person is doing. You can't just hire somebody if you don't at least have the basic knowledge of what it is, because once you hand it off to somebody else, if you don't know at least the basics, then you're not going to be able to instead of just paying somebody, then you could bring somebody in on your own team to do your graphics. So how important is it to find the best that's out there, learn from them, and then move it into your business?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and I think that to some degree, again, starting out, you're going to have to do some things on your own, and you got to figure out what it is that you're working on, and what the at least from your limited perspective, which direction we're looking to go. Now, there's a tactic that I've always used throughout my career. When I talked earlier about resource management, I don't mean money necessarily. I mean being able to gather information, gather details to help you make an informed decision. Now, one tactic I have always used is using vendors against each other. If this is not your zone of genius, your wheelhouse, what you do is you take what person A said, and when you go, a lot of people say like, oh, I don't want to tell person B what person A said because I don't want to distort them or whatever. I take that to them. I said, okay, you're telling me that the best strategy is X, Y, and Z. Well, guy over here says A, B, and C is the best strategy. Why is your better? Then take this guy's back over to A, B, and C, right? Utilize their expertise to break down what the best strategy is. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people don't do because it makes you feel like an idiot, right? If you're just using one person's words to justify what to do, but when you don't have that skill set, you don't have that expertise, or at least not as much as the people you're talking to, you got to be able to utilize what they're saying to help you make the most informed decision.
Okay, but then another aspect that would come down to self-awareness. That would come down to, like, I was with GNC for over 30 years, and I would use that tactic all the time. Like, if I know the guys from NutriBio are giving me, buy 12, get 3 free, I'm going to go over to Cellucor and be like, hey, they're giving me 12 and 3. Can you beat it or can you match it? But I would never turn them against each other.
Sure.
For me, it was always, okay, I haven't, like, if I, like, now we're having a relationship, me and you, hopefully it's going to be a generational relationship, but hopefully there's going to be a time where I might say, John, bro, I need your help. I don't understand this. Would you mind showing me? Would you mind teaching me? And as long as you're not creating drama, and as long as you have a good heart and you really care, people are willing to help. I mean, I can reach out to Sharon Lecter, David Meltzer, Kiyosaki through my text message and be like, bro, I don't know this. Can you please help me? And of course, I want to provide value. And if you can, I understand. But most of the time, you're like, sure, why would I not? If you come at me that way, ask, saying, listen, you don't know something. Because most people starting out don't know. And most people that are successful started out and didn't know. But I think it's the way you, like you said, the way you go to your vendors, or you go to somebody that you want to have as a mentor and say, listen, like my mentor is John Lee Dumas. He's got the #1 podcast in the world for business, Entrepreneurs on Fire. I said, John, I need your help. I'll hire you. But I don't know. I know what I know. John knows what John knows. I don't know what John knows. So can you teach me? And he said, yeah, but it's not free. But I'll teach. So how important is being humble and trying to find mentors that are doing exactly what you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, self-awareness is the top and the bottom, right? Self-awareness is knowing what you're good at. Self-awareness is knowing what you're not good at. And so being self-aware and, like you said, having the humility to know what you don't know is absolutely 100% critical, because what's going to happen when you don't have that humility is that you are going to do things, you're going to do things incorrectly. As someone who has built operations for over a dozen organizations, for-profit, nonprofit, working with founders who don't have that humility, think they have the time, think they have the intelligence, think they have the skill set to do something, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be redoing that for them. It's going to cost twice as much and take twice as long, right? Because redoing something that's broken is never as easy as doing it right the first time.
Okay, so now if somebody's, when I knew that I was starting a corporation, I downloaded every audio book I can find on business. And as I'm walking my 2-hour walks in the morning, that's all I did was just, all right, listening. And then I'd be like, all right, Meltzer, bro, I'm starting a corporation. What would you recommend? You know, and I would ask 3 or 4 people, like you said, what do you recommend? And then kind of like, okay, well, 4 people said this and 75% of them said do this. So I'm probably going to do this. So how important is it to be able to, if before you even start a business, take a deep dive into the business and find the people that are, I see a lot of people, they start a business and and they're like, okay, well, you know, I'm going to start a t-shirt company. Well, you can't compete on price because you can't compete with, you know, a lot of these companies. You're not going to compete with Under Armour. So you have to find your own way. But I think a lot of these people that start businesses, they don't look at the top of the food chain. They're just looking at people that are doing okay. Like for me, my goals are Gary Vaynerchuk, Patrick Bet-David, Ed Milet. That's me. But it's my curiosity that I'm saying, why is Ed Milet getting so many downloads? And I think once you start becoming curious of why somebody else is crushing it and you're not, that's when I think the game changed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, you know, to help people with that transition of the DIY dilemma and the ego of feeling like you have to know everything and do everything. Look at it as curiosity. Instead of don't look at it as what do I not know, but more what can I learn, right? That's where the curiosity comes into play. So it's not that you are coming into this from a deficiency of necessarily not knowing something, but you have a curious mind. You're willing to do and go to whatever links is necessary to take things to the next level. And if that means becoming curious and learning from others, letting others do, then that's what you should be doing.
Okay. And so now Illinois, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite Bulls players of all time, which the Worm. Everybody, I love the Worm. But he would sit and he would shoot basketballs, not to make the basket, but to miss, to find out which way the ball was going to go. And I think that's what made him great, is because his curiosity to figure out, okay, I'm not worried about making the basket, but when the ball hits this way, it's going to bounce that way. And I think that's what some of the great people, like I know talking to, you know, Kobe's trainer and Michael Jordan's trainer, Kobe would call Michael after Michael just spanked his ass at like 3 a.m. and say, Michael, how'd you do it? What did I do? What did I miss? And I think that's the greatness, is somebody that is curious, right?
100%. I you know, the old adage of being a student of the game, right? If you want to be the best, you got to study the game that you're playing. You got to learn, you got to analyze, you got to humble yourself and ask the questions, learn from others, and no one ever comes out of the gates, right? We all can know the stories and anecdotes of, we're all, every great leader is sitting on the shoulders of other great leaders. Whether you're talking about Bezos or, any great entrepreneur, they did not start from square one. No matter what people may say or think, they learned from other people. They watched, they did, they tweaked, they learned as they went along, and they improved themselves and their organizations every step of the way. They didn't come out of the gates, another sports analogy, batting 1,000, right? They might have got there eventually, but they didn't start that way. They learned from others. They watched the game. They learned from the game.
But like I said, it all comes down to curiosity. Like I'm listening to the biography of Elon Musk. I don't know shit about it. I mean, I know, but I don't know. But when he was growing up, he should not be where he's at. The way his father treated him, the way everything happened with the abuse and all that. But if I didn't read that book or start reading it, I wouldn't know that, okay, he's at where he's at now because of what he went through. And I think it's just that curiosity factor. Now, you told me before we came on that curiosity is your superpower. My superpower is, and it can be bad or good, it's empathy. Okay. I'm an empathy guy. Like somebody asked me if you would be a superhero for Halloween, what would it be? I'm empathy guy. I would be with a big E. But I mean, I would make the worst juror in the world because I'd be like, yeah, they sounds innocent. I got nothing. But talk about how you found out about how curiosity became your superpower and how everybody has a superpower in them. They might just have to ask the questions like Dean Graziosi talks about, the 7 whys. So talk about how you found your superpower.
Sure. Is at a point in my life, my career where I had some transitions and, like most people, that's when I kind of get back on the horse of networking and reaching out to people I know and trust and just do the good old fashioned networking. And I talked with a former acquaintance of mine from college, and she said, "Hey, I think you should talk to a colleague of mine. He is if I remember correctly, at Northwestern University up in Chicago, an academic, but his gift to the world is helping people define their superpower." And so I had some meetings with him, filled out some of his questionnaires. It really was one of those deep analysis, personality assessments type things. And we had our final meeting. He said, "John, your superpower is curiosity." As I'm sure you can imagine, like, I was hoping flight or strength or some visibility, something that would help me do this or that. But come back to curiosity, and so at first it doesn't seem that exciting. But then as I really began to look at my life, look at my career, look at the changes I've made, how I've helped the organizations I've worked for, curiosity has always been there. And actually resurfaced working with a brand company to kind of help my personal brand as well as my consulting brand. And it came up again as curiosity being my superpower. And it really, I think how she came to see that in me was just when I go into an organization working for a small business, startup, nonprofit, my goal is to get in there and kick the tires and see what's working, what's not working, and make valuable changes for that organization. I'm not a status quo guy. I'm not a just keep the trains on the tracks type guy. I want to improve things, and curiosity cultivates change, and that's what fuels innovation and growth.
I could see that because I did 23 years in the military, and whether I'm speaking to military or if I'm speaking to a business, I don't say anything for a while when I get there. I'm a creeper. And I tell everyone, I love going to the shore. I'm a people watcher. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how you can just see how an organization is just by watching the people. Like I watch how the leaders treat their people. Mm-hmm. Like for me, I think Zig Ziglar said it, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I'll watch it, see how the leader treats the people. And pretty much if it all starts from the head down. Like when I was a tank commander, if I treated my guys like shit, guess what? We're going to have a bad day. We're not going to do very well. Somebody might not come home. So for me as a leader, I had to say, okay, and we're going to talk about structure. Okay, I know my driver is a great driver, but he's a better loader. So I'm going to put him in that position where he thrives and where he kicks ass. But I see a lot of people in organizations, it's a power thing where instead of saying, listen, I'm the CEO, if Frank loves doing this and he sucks at sales, why am I going to keep Frank in sales, moving to what he's great at? So do you think it's because like, even like when Tom Brady just 1 year or 2 years went to Tampa Bay, changed the whole structure just by walking into the locker room. So how important do you think is the leadership from the top down?
To me, it's everything, right? We're talking about the culture of the organization, and culture has to be led. If culture will form regardless, but when it forms on its own, it tends to be something we don't want. And so I actually talk a lot about a curious culture. Simon Sinek, we all know his name these days. He's famous. One of his books and one of his talking pieces is "Leaders Eat Last." Talking about the servant leadership aspect. Well, I'm actually writing a book as well on the curious leader. And when I talk about the curious culture of organization, what I talk about is leaders speak last. And what I mean by that is that, most time what happens in a meeting, staff meeting, organization meeting, whatever, the CEO or the head of the organization sits down and says, they're rehashing something that happened or they're about to do whatever it is. And what's the first thing that happens? The leader gives their opinion on all these things. When they do that, they just distorted everyone else's opinions in that room to be geared towards what that leader said. If you want true, honest feedback, thoughts, whatever, allow your organization, allow your staff to talk first. Be curious about what their views are on the subject to get a diverse view of different perspectives on the issue that's being discussed before you ever chime in. You also mentioned, putting people, where they're good at and what they enjoy. We've talked about that quite a bit. And, I deal a lot with organizations in my association background, where a lot of times there's a lot of volunteers and chapter leaders that are struggling bringing in the next generation. We all know the sayings about the next generation, right? They're entitled, they're lazy, they're this, that, and that. Now, I encourage everyone to go look up what Aristotle said about the next generation. The exact same thing we said today, right? This is not a new phenomenon. This is the way we've always viewed the next generation, generation after generation. But also, we have this view that when we have young people working in our organization, they only want to do what they like doing. And therefore, we call them entitled. But I actually was reading a book by Napoleon Hill where he's interviewing Carnegie. The book is basically an interview between the two of them, right?
Yep.
And, the book is now 120 years old, give or take.
I listened to the audio book and it was like 14 hours, but it was awesome.
Yeah. Carnegie 120 years ago was talking about get to know your staff.
Yeah.
Get to know what winds their clock, what makes them get up in the morning.
Yeah. Do
you think you will have a staff member be more productive, have less errors, be more energized, doing 95% of what they enjoy and like doing and good at, or 5% they don't, or reversed, right? We see it as entitled, but as leaders, we should be curious about our staff and our people in our organization to find out what winds their clock, what they're good at, what they enjoy doing, because I guarantee you, they're going to deliver far more day in and day out by doing things that they enjoy and like doing versus the opposite.
And I want to go back to something you said. As you see, I'm writing stuff down because I don't want to miss anything. But like Simon, Sinek talked about, leaders eat last. And coming from the military, I won't put anything in my mouth until everybody at my table is eating. When I'm walking with my family, I'm behind everybody just to make sure that they're safe. I have their 6 because that's what I was taught. And I think that once you're like, I used to have guys, they would go, they would wake up later, whatever. And I'd be like, don't worry about me. Go eat chow. I'll grab something later. And they're like, Sarge, you missed a meal. I'm like, don't worry about it. As long as you ate, then you're good. Like even DMX said, make sure your dogs are eating. So, make sure that the people around you know that you're putting them first. They'll run through a brick wall for you as long as they know, wow, this guy really cares about me. And then something else, about the next generation. I look forward to it because we just came back from vacation, and every place I went, everybody was on their phones, including my kids, including me and my wife. And I'm looking at it as a digital creator and a podcast. I'm like, this is fucking great. I'm like, they're going to be listening to my show. So I think with the next generation, like I'm 55, but I think if you don't move with the next generation, because I believe if you incorporate old school business, treating people right, building relationships, and then you incorporate new school, including AI and including all this, you can't lose because you have the old generation and the new generation, and you put them together, you can't lose. So a lot of people that shit on new generations, me and my wife were just talking about this. When I was growing up, because you see these kids on their phone, but when I was growing up, I would binge watch cartoons. I would binge watch stuff on Saturday nights, Friday nights. My kids just don't watch TV. The phone is the new TV. And for my grandparents, it would have been newspapers.
Yeah.
So it's the same shit. It's just moving on from generation to generation. Right. So embrace new technology. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the new gen, because I got a son that's 22, I got a son that's 19, and I got a daughter that's 12. They want to have a quality of life. It's not just about the money, but then I also tell my kids, listen, if you don't have money, you're not going to have much of a quality of life because you're going to be sitting home in the basement somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I think the new gen are very good at what they do. We just have to learn to mentor them to make them a little bit more hard charging and push you a little bit harder. But they can look up stuff like this. My kids are like, just copy and paste it. I'm like, well, slow down, Junior. What did you just say? So talk about embracing the next generation and embracing new techs, including AI, and going old school and new school.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still kind of the old school or older generation business model is still kind of, stuck in this the assembly line, mentality, right? Where like, this is your one job, you do it over and over again. You come here, you do this one job, you do it right. You have a great income, you have a great retirement, and we're all happy. Today, we don't have that type of workforce, right? We're not working on assembly lines. We are working in fast-changing, diverse organizations. Again, look at my own career, where I have to know a lot about a lot of things in order to get my job done. This notion of being siloed, it has gone away. And because of that, what more than anything, I think the younger generation, because of this dynamic, is they want to contribute. They want to feel like they're a part of the community. They want to feel like they're part of the organization and that they are an active participant in driving it forward. This kind of again goes back to learning about your staff and learning what winds their clock is they want to contribute. I don't think that 50 years ago that was necessarily the mindset. I wasn't around then, but just kind of hearing people talk is like, no, you had a job, it put food on the table. That's what it was. End all be all. That's not what people do today. Our because of technology, for one, our lives and our work are going to be intertwined from here on out. This whole notion of a work-life balance, meaning one ends and the other begins, is nonsense. They are so intertwined, especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're a business owner today. I mean, there are sometimes I work Monday and Tuesdays when I don't have my son. I tend to work 12 hours.
Yep.
When I have my son, I work less, right? Because I want to spend a little more time with him. I have to get him to soccer practice, this and that. And so I'm able to just, up and down my schedule based upon things. But this whole notion of I just work 9 to 5 and the rest I forget about is never going to happen for me again, as long as I stay in the entrepreneurial path. And so, kind of again, going back to the younger generation is we just got to find ways, knowing that this old school notion of business and working 9 to 5 is out the window and it's never coming back.
Okay,
so how do we?
But also, and I tell my son, I just dropped him off at school. He's a sophomore in college. I told him, I said, you have a 6-year program, but you need to get on LinkedIn right now. You need to start building connections. You still need to start building relationships. But now, say if it's me and you, and I call you up, I'm like, John, bro, let's go to lunch, maybe hit some golf balls or something. And we do that. That's going to create more of a relationship than me just saying, hey, bro, let's hop on a Zoom call.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, I lived in Myrtle Beach for 10 years and there was millions and billions of dollars being made and transferred on the links because people, and I come from a big Italian household, people that eat with you, you build more relationships that way and you build more caring. So don't you think that some people are just, oh, well, I'll just Zoom them or I'll text them instead of saying, hey, let's go out for lunch, even hop on a phone call instead of just saying, I'll text somebody. So how important it is the face-to-face, the shaking hands, the slapping each other on the back, the watching a game or going on a golf course. How important is that? Is it still important today?
100%, and I think you've kind of pinpointed how tricky that is, right? Because even myself, right? Like someone says, "Hey, let's meet for a coffee." In my head, my head is immediately going, "All right, that means I got to get fully dressed. Not my workout clothes, not whatever that I sit around and work on during the day. I gotta be presentable to go outside. I got a 25-minute drive there. I got a 25-minute back. So all in all, this coffee." That is a 20-30-minute meeting is going to take an hour and a half for me. So I'm constantly thinking, okay, wouldn't it just better be to do a Zoom? But you're absolutely correct. Like the personal connection. Look, we saw this with COVID, right? We saw what happened with COVID, with everyone working remote, everyone being apart. Culture suffered, education suffered, everything suffered from us not being together and learning and growing together, making those connections. So yes, I think in today's age of having everything at your fingertips and be able to work so quickly and do things so efficiently, it makes it hard to do those in-person connections, but they're absolutely vital and important. And it's something that I actually have been very much working on the last few months for myself and into getting out there more, meeting with people. I did a talk for a Rotary Club a couple months back, and there's a guy we really kind of connected, and he enjoyed what I talked about. We got a burger and a beer on a Saturday afternoon. Just talking philosophy, talking nonprofits, talking operations, talking curiosity, and just got down and like, I want to do that every month with this guy, just to sit down and connect, and it helps me, think about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and how I'm portraying what I'm doing just by talking to him in a very casual, friendly manner.
Because I'm just trying to, I'm thinking because I'm a relationship guy. That's what I do. I build relationships. And I realize that because I got kids and they all played soccer, that if I'm sitting there hanging out with two soccer dads just sitting there shooting the shit and you're in business and I'm in business. Oh, you own a car dealership? Bro, I need a car. How about I give you the business? Or if I say, John, I would love to do something, with the kids. And then down the road, I see that, wait a minute, it's your son's birthday. And I invite your sons to come over my house. And then you invite me to go over yours. It's going to be way more important than some guy that was just on the Zoom say, hey, I would like you to buy a car for me.
100%. Yeah. I think the way to look at that is a Zoom call, a text message exchange, et cetera, an email exchange is a lot more easy to forget who that person is, what they do, how you can help each other when you don't have that physical connection of being near one another. Again, we're all energy, right? Like we all have energy that flows in and out of us. And there's something about being in person that allows us to relate to someone on a deeper level. And because of that, again, if I'm a insurance salesman and you're a car dealer, having that connection, tying those things to a soccer tournament, to a hamburger, to a beer, whatever it is going to help reconnect that memory of this guy, and that I may be able to help him or he may be able to help me, but it helps connect those dots so we actually remember instead of just getting buried behind hundreds if not thousands of emails and text messages.
And that's something I had. My friend Steve D. Sims was on the show, and I had his son on my show. And he says sometimes in the new business world, while everybody else is going right, maybe you need to go left. Like for me, once we hang up, I'm going to ask you for your address. I'm going to send a handwritten thank you card out. I'm going to send, some stickers and stuff like that. And I've had people put my handwritten thank you card on their refrigerator. And they're like, I haven't received a handwritten thank you note in 15 years. So talk about it sometimes as a business owner, if everybody else is going the AI way, maybe you need to go the human way for a little bit and sometimes switch it up and do both.
Yeah. So a couple things on that. Again, people tend to just think that digital is king, right? Like, mail is dead. Physical is dead. Everything's digital. Direct mail is a booming business right now. If you think about the number of pieces, like you said, the number of pieces you get in the mail, whether handwritten or not, you look at every single one of those. My personal Gmail, I have my main Gmail account. It's got the promotions tab. It's got the social tab. It's got the spam. I have to look at 4 different things to see if I got everything. And I don't do that most often. I never go through my promotions. I never go through my social tab. I never go through any of those. But when I get mail in my door, I look through every single piece. I think it was, the old who's who among American high school students. That was run by a family, and they did all their marketing direct mail. It ended up being bought out by a bigger conglomerate company. And they said, whoa, they looked at the expense of direct mail that the company was doing. They said, well, we can do a lot better. We're going to move this all to digital. It tanked. There is a connection with getting these invites, to join something in a physical form versus a digital email or whatever, that really resonated with people. And they were willing to do it far more by getting that physical piece. At the same time, again, I think everything is, it's not a black and white thing, right? We also have to bring in the digital to balance it all out, to streamline, create some efficiencies. You got to find that way of getting the low hanging fruit you can, where you can, in a very digital way, but then go to the personal connections to seal the deals, get the individuals that are a little tougher to bring in, from a sales marketing perspective. You got to really have a combination of both to really have an impact and expand your organization.
But, and the only reason I'm bringing this up because I had my friend Dennis Hugh was on my show. And like a week later, I get a package in the mail. It was a pair of socks with my face on it. And now every time I open up my sock drawer, I'm like, there's Dennis. So anytime I know anybody that needs any marketing, I'm like, Dennis, because it's there. It's there all the time. But, I wanted to talk, for a little bit because, as you were saying that, digital and then there's something about physical, but you have to do like an amalgamation of both. And I think something like for me, like when somebody buys my book, 22% goes to help veterans struggling with suicide. So I give back. And I think, and I know people that drive Subarus are going to hate me for this, but I think Subarus are some of the ugliest cars ever made. But people love them because they have a mission.
Mm-hmm.
My wife loves Bomba socks because they have a mission. And I think now the newer generations, they like to get behind a mission. So how important is it for you, for a company, to have a some sort of mission that somebody can get involved with and get behind with? Because I know, like, there's certain places I'll go where the dinner might be more expensive, like John Bon Jovi's place, to where I know that if I pay for dinner, they're giving a meal out. So I don't mind spending more money. So how important it is if you're going to start a company that you might think about, maybe we should kind of add some kind of mission into this, so it's not just business all the time.
Yeah. Again, we're talking about, old and young generations and how we view things. And, there's a lot of opinion, right, on corporate governance and responsibility and what the role of a company is. The role of a company just to, be responsible for their shareholders and their wealth, or is it to do more? Is it to give back? Most even big corporations these days have some kind of arm that does philanthropic good. Now, I'd say the problem with most of these big corporations is they don't do a good job of telling that story. It's on their profit and loss statement, right, as a write-off for what they're doing, but they're not out there telling that story. But these younger startup companies are. They're like, hey, look, we're on a mission to do X, Y, and Z. The way we're going to do that is to sell you premium socks that better than any other socks you ever put on, and we're going to charge you $30 a pair. But it's going to be not only is it going to be the best sock you've ever put on, we're going to help other people in the process. And even if you're not going the philanthropic route, the way we market today is about giving back, right? In a different way. It's not just, today's marketing isn't just about, this is my service, this is what I do for you. It's about, I'm going to solve this pain point for you. It's just a different way of using words and language and marketing, but it's more about, how can I help you? Not what can you buy from me, but I want to help you. And like even my own company, we're focused on helping organizations get growth, get clarity, and get peace of mind. We're not selling you on operations. We're selling you on growth, clarity, and peace of mind. And so we're helping you solve the problems that you needed to do. But if you can, especially when you have a product, right? When you have socks, when you have underwear, when you have these products that like are needed in shelters, are needed throughout the world, to tack on and say, hey, look, we're going to give X number of away to, every sock we sell, we're going to give one away. It absolutely goes a long way in building a brand and building a mission and not just a company.
Okay. So this is a teaching podcast. So for instance, Private Joe Snuffy is about to get out of the military, wants to start a business. Was it August 28th, 2024? What would be your top 3 pieces of advice for somebody to do before they even start a business?
I become a lot more. I was a little slow onto this way of doing business sometimes, but I'm kind of a fire ready aim person, right? Like I kind of just go at it. That's kind of my personality. I like growth. I like change. I like creation. And I have found myself in a situation where I do too much too quick. It costs me money before the product or service I'm delivering is mapped out, and I see that people want to buy it. So one of the first thing I do is adopt this new strategy of sell it first, then create it. I mean, that's where a lot of these digital providers, influencers that are building big brands, big businesses around who they are and what that brand is, they're selling the product before they deliver it. So look at ways that you can hone into who you are, hone into what you believe in, hone into what you're good at. Like we talked before, be curious about who you are and what you're good at. Find a way to solve people's problem. And before you start marketing it, building a product, building this and that, find ways to sell it, road test it, see if it's going to work. If you can't, if you got a network of 1,000 people who all might be viable clients or customers of what you're trying to sell, and you can't sell 20 of them on that, you might want to rethink what you're selling. So find ways to first of all, be strategic about who you are and what you want to create. Then get curious about, like, how can I sell this before I ever spend a dime? And if you can find a way to do that, that's the roadmap to creating a great business.
So tell us, how do we get in touch with you? What have you got going on in the next 6, 12, 18 months?
Yeah. So, right now, I when I first started my consulting business 6 years ago, what I did was I launched operations for a few startups, both for-profit and nonprofit, and then stayed on as a fractional COO. And then a couple months ago, I guess maybe about a year ago, I started really thinking, doing the fractional COO work, which I still do and still love doing, but it limited the amount of organizations I could help, people and organizations. And so I started thinking, what is it that I do that truly brings value to organizations? And again, I go back to those words: growth, clarity, and peace of mind. Through operations, I'm able to help organizations grow, help them know that they're being strategic on that growth, and know that things are being done correctly, right? That's what I help them do. And so we're really focused on growing our growth planning business, in which we do a strategic audit of your operations, what's working, what's not working, and help you, pinpoint those top, 5 or 6 things that would really help your organization grow. So we're really focused on that. I am also working on getting out there more and speaking, doing podcasts, doing keynote speeches as well, really getting this message out there on curiosity, because I really believe it can help a lot of leaders with their mindset, a lot of organizations grow. So the 2 best ways to get a hold of me are through my 2 websites. My consulting business is www.think-lateral.com. And then my personal brand website is just my name, Jon, Jon Bassford, like a bass fish in a Ford car.com. Those are the 2 best ways to get hold of me.
Yep. And I'm following you on all your social media. And by the way, your Instagram is fire. I just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
So how do we find anything that you've ever written?
Sure. So I actually have 2 books that are coming up here pretty soon. One is actually on a more personal side. I am writing a book on co-parenting. That's coming from a situation where, after a divorce and having a child, a lot of people, after, running to someone after a few years and knowing I was divorced, how is co-parenting with your ex-wife type situation. And I was like, great, we could write a book on it. And I got tired of saying that line. So I'm actually in the process, probably the next 30 days, releasing that book. It's called The Co-Parenting Success. It's Not About You. And the next book that is going to be following shortly behind that is a book on curiosity, unlocking growth and innovation. And so if you keep an eye on my website, you can absolutely see things there. I do have a Business Insider, what's the term on LinkedIn? Not a blog, but a channel on LinkedIn as well that people can follow. And I do a lot of discussions on operations, efficiency, and curiosity.
So newsletters and stuff like that?
Yeah, newsletter. Yeah. That's it.
And by the way, once that book on co-parenting come back, I would love to have you come back on the show, because I love that you just said it's not about you. It's about the children. And usually when anybody goes through divorce, parents use the child as a weapon. So that's a whole other discussion, but I want to have you come back on and we'll talk about that book.
Would love to.
Brother, I just want to say, and I got to give a big shout out to guest.io for putting this together. I want to say thank you guys. Jon, I just want to say, brother, I'm truly humbled and grateful that we got a chance to chat, and hopefully we could build a generational relationship from this point on.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed the conversation and look forward to staying in touch. And I absolutely would love to be back to talk about the book when it comes out.
I love it. And guys, as you know, I'm a big Joel Osteen guy. And something he talks about is every morning we wake up, we have a choice to be a victim or a victor. And if you listen to this show, you are a victor of your present and your future and no longer a victim of your past. So guys, thank you for always showing up. I love you guys. Oh yeah, my book is available. It's #1 on Amazon right now. If you pick up the book for $30, you get the autographed copy, $1,000 in bonuses, and remember, 22% go to help end veteran suicide. So guys, I love you, and remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. I love you guys. Jon, my brother, have an awesome week.
You do the same. Thanks for having me.
Be good, brother.
Thank you. Bye.